The Oregon Trail was roughly a 2,000-mile route from Independence, Missouri to Oregon City, Oregon. It was used by hundreds of thousands of American pioneers in the mid-1800s to immigrate west. After enduring what must have been an unbelievable challenging trip across America, the pioneers were then faced with climbing over the flanks of Mount Hood if they could afford the Barlow Toll Road, or rafting the mighty Columbia down to Fort Vancouver. Rafts could be rented from the Hudson Bay Company or from the local Indian tribes. The wagons would be taken apart and strapped onto a large wooden raft. The raft would then make its way down the river, through the rapids, avoiding waterfalls, and trying to make it all the way down to Fort Vancouver. Unfortunately, this was not the case for every raft. Lives were lost and dreams were dashed upon the rocks in the fast-moving waters of the Columbia River. When these rafts flipped, their contents would float for a little bit and then drop down into the darkness of the Columbia. It's at the bottom of the Columbia River these items remain for 170 years, only to be seen by the salmon and sturgeon over the many years. These items stayed hidden to humans through World War I, World War II, the moon landings, and even the disappearance of the Oregon Trail, until today. After studying old maps from Lewis and Clark, the Corps of Engineers, and modern-day navigational charts, we started diving areas that looked like they contained river hazards for travelers, canoes, or rafts. Our goal was to find antique bottles, and we were not disappointed. What we found was absolutely amazing.
Okay, ready to see what I found?
Yeah, let's see it. Oh my god. Wow.
That is...
Wow. Two of them. Were they like right next to each other or what?
They were pretty close to each other.
Wow. How, like, what is the story behind that?
I don't know, I'm like...
Bring it up close here. Wow.
And look at the wood is all fairly well preserved. This one's pretty chunked up.
They're so beautiful. I don't know if they're Flintlock or black. They kind of look like black powder.
I call them black powder. Isn't that the mechanism, that the little piece of flint which...
Yeah. Wow. I wonder how old they are. Yeah.
The bindings are still like on there, whatever that...
I can't believe it still has all the wood and everything.
You gotta keep those...
preserved there.
Yeah.
Wow. That is incredible.
You spend enough time underwater, eventually gonna find something cool. I can't even imagine finding anything cooler.
Wow, let's take a look at that. Oh wow. That is amazing. That is like...
Go nice and slow from the...
Yeah. So all the wood is preserved. Wow, that is a once in a lifetime.
There's a trigger,
right
there's
there.
probably the maker's mark.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I am 100% gonna...
That is incredible.
Can you see? I mean, you're not gonna get shot. Is there a hole in the barrel at all?
It's all rusted.
Yeah,
it's like rusted shut.
Jeez.
Wow.
That's strange. This one's a little more worse for wear.
Yeah. Dude.
But I mean, even if you found that.
Yeah. Oh my god. Still here. That is amazing. Wow.
Oh my god.
I cannot believe that.
Check what I found.
First time going out diving with him, I didn't expect he'd find this. Not at all. Wow, that is beautiful.
But something happened out there. A canoe must have flipped, or a boat flipped, or maybe, I mean, who knows? It's in about 50 feet of water. I don't know. I can't imagine them just laying there when the dam flooded. Yeah. Because that would have been in 1933. So why would you leave these out there in 1933? Yeah. You wouldn't just leave them on the ground. These are underwater since the time they dropped into the water. Yeah. And
you know, I only see videos like this, people finding guns, like Civil War guns, but wow, never thought I'd see it myself. Like you see that, I've seen people find that out in the East Coast, like in Civil War battles and whatnot, but not here in Washington.
I did a video underwater of them, but I barely had the.
They're so long, it's hard to get like in the camera, right?
I barely had the. I couldn't concentrate. I looked around the area a little bit more, and then I know it's right. It was out. I know basically where it was, but I don't even feel this tank on my back anymore. The 80-pound tank.
That is so exciting.
You know, I would have liked to come back because if the canoe tipped over or something. I know the general area. You saw where I popped up, right? Yeah. I know the area, but I don't know if I could find it again. But you know, I wish I. Now looking back, it'd be nice to go back and actually search that area, because there might have been like a bottle or I don't know, whatever might have been in the canoe.
Was it stashed or was it lost, or?
I feel like it was. No, I think they were.
I think it was
dropped.
Dropped, yeah. Or like, it's like,
I don't think I can go back in. I'm too excited.
Yeah. So the next day, we definitely went back for another dive. Although the weather had turned, the wind had picked up, and you can see the fresh snow in the background, but that certainly didn't stop us. Fortunately, when we got to the dive site, the weather was better, and it was a perfect day for diving. So after having some time to sleep on it and think about finding the 2 Flintlock rifles, we're definitely thinking that this was some type of a canoe accident, or perhaps a rafting accident. The idea of a covered wagon accident really didn't come along until this dive happened. As soon as I hit the water, I met with the strong currents of the Columbia River. I quickly pull myself down the anchor line, hoping for a smooth landing away from the always present and always deadly gill nets. As I make my way down the anchor line, I'm using my light as a beacon to look down below me, because the visibility is very bad, but I'm waiting for the bottom to show up, and I want to make sure that I'm not going to land on a rock or a gill net or anything like that. So I'm waiting here. You can see it's gotten darker and darker. There's the strobe flashing, telling me I'm within about 10 feet of the anchor. And as I drop down, inflating my BC so I have a nice soft landing, I can see the bottom appear. Fortunately, it's a rock and no gill nets. There's my scooter, and there behind the rock is my anchor safely wedged into the gravel. Knowing my boat is safe now, and I'm away from the nets, it's time to explore to see what other evidence I can find from whatever type of accident has happened in this area. On one of my last dives in this exact same spot, I had to abandon my search mission, and I focused on cutting up nets for fear of returning to this same spot later and getting snagged. These nets are no joke. They're lead lined. That means the center of these ropes is actually a core of lead surrounded by some type of rope material that is really strong and really resistant to being cut. They're everywhere, and most of the time they're just laying on the bottom, ready to reach up and grab you or snag onto one of your bolt snaps or get sucked into your scooter like you can see here. They're probably one of the biggest things I fear the most while being underwater. This is no place for beginner divers. It's no place for advanced divers. It's a place for expert divers who've been trained and who are ready to cut themselves out of a situation that they've somehow got into. The key is not to get trapped in the first place. Okay, that's enough of the safety lecture. Let's get back to the dive. So I'm down here looking for evidence of what I thought was a canoe accident, and this is what appears from the darkness. This is a wagon wheel. It's a wagon wheel that must be at least 170 years old and fits the time frame of 1830 to 1860, which is when the covered wagons were placed onto rafts and brought down this area. The area I am in right now, these are rapids that have been covered up by the dams. The rocks are smooth, and you can tell that this is an area where the water used to flow over, and somebody unexpectedly ran their raft into these rocks. Can you imagine what it would be like to look around here and find a covered wagon? Most of it would be gone, but you'd still have some steel, and you'd still have what would look like a covered wagon. And who knows what could be inside? Perhaps some bags filled with everything that the pioneers needed to start a new life in Oregon. To solve any mystery, you need some good clues. And so far we have 2 Flintlock rifles from the 1850s, and now we have a wagon wheel from about 1830s to 1860s, 60 feet down in the Columbia River in an area that are rapids, what were rapids back before the dams were built. If you take a look at this wagon wheel closely, there's no way I would touch it. It's on its last legs, literally. It's held together with just a few tiny pieces of wood, and to touch it would be certain death for this wheel. We're probably the first people to have seen this wheel in 170 years, and this is where it's going to stay. You just got to ask yourself what happened in this place on this day that put a wagon wheel down on the bottom of the Columbia River. We need some more clues, and they're coming up soon. Shortly after discovering the wagon wheel, I headed on a compass course that took me closer to shore and into a little bit shallower water. Perhaps if a wagon sank here, items would have floated downstream, get caught in an eddy, and moved closer to shore. I was absolutely stoked to find this green bottle. It's an 1860s hand-blown bottle, most likely blown in San Francisco, and somehow maybe it made its way up to the Oregon Trail and was traded with one of the wagons on its way to Oregon. It's most likely a lavender oil or some type of toiletry from the 1860s or 1870s. This is one of our last pieces of evidence. This is a snuff bottle. Snuff as in tobacco. This is the original Copenhagen tobacco. It was produced by George Wayman back in 1822. This bottle is probably somewhere between 1840s and 1850s and goes along with our covered wagon story. This is the only bottle that we found that wasn't broken. We found a few others that were broken, and we found piles of broken shards and other types of pottery and crockery in this same area. The search will continue until we find the wagon or the canoe or whatever it was that crashed on these rocks back in the 1830s to the 1860s. When the dams of the Columbia flooded these valleys and gorges, it inundated 14,000 years of human history in a moment. Come along on our next mission to dive the Columbia River and unlock some of her secrets. This is Search and Discovery. What did you discover today?